Before we get season 7 officially underway, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to everyone who gave to the Second Amendment Foundation for my birthday fundraiser. Not only did you give to one of the better Pro 2A organizations out there, you forced Facebook to facilitate it. So, double tap. And with that, season 7 officially starts now. This season finds me in something of a philosophical mood, primed by the protests that have been taking place in Hong Kong. Now, much like their forebears in Tiananmen Square about 30 years prior, they have something to teach us about liberty. And then I come across this Twitter thread started by the ever-lovely Kirsten Joy Weiss, talking about the impact of thoughts and ideas. And during the course of my exchanges on that thread, I was thinking more and more about how, in and of itself, the Second Amendment is insufficient to defend liberty. There has to be more. So here I am, getting ready for a long day of videoing and editing, trying to get this out by the end of the day, when I fire up the computer that I use as a sort of teleprompter, and what greets me but somebody posting this article right here. Nice to know that you're on the right track, that others are also sharing the same concerns that you are. Now, lest anyone start getting alarmed at my previous statement and reacting that I have somehow gone FUD, or worse yet, gotten seduced by a homophobic talking point that guns are not efficacious for resisting tyranny, please consider the key component to that phrase. Let me rehash it. That the Second Amendment in and of itself is not sufficient to defend liberty. If you don't value freedom, you will find little reason to defend it and will most likely be willing to squander it for the promises of, say, security. And our primary defense against that are not the weapons of the Second Amendment, but the arsenal that is made available to us by the First Amendment. Now, when most hear First Amendment, they think of freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and freedom to petition, and rightly so. But the very first thing that is mentioned in this amendment is the freedom of religion. Sadly, just like too many progressives regard the Second Amendment as being outdated and irrelevant, I've come across too many of my fellow libertarians who also regard religious rights with the same disdain. Now, I know people have differing views on the value of religion in society today, and the regulars on my page are no different. But please, whatever your feelings on the matter, hear me out as to why this first segment of the First Amendment is so important, especially in regards to the defense of liberty. One of religion's main reasons for being is the exploration, discovery, establishment, and cultivation of truth, and answering the questions that are central to the whys of human experience. And in the history of Western civilization, Judaism and Christianity have played a large, nearly 2,000-year role in shaping our ideas about the natural rights and freedoms of humanity. Now, I could easily go into the weeds about the details of it and make a video that's way too long for anyone to bother watching, but for further reading on the matter, I would recommend Robert Royal's The God That Did Not Fail. The people of our founding era understood this, and their pamphlets and letters and articles and essays were chock full of allusions to biblical teaching. Even a deist like Thomas Paine, as highly critical as he was of organized religion, leveraged the Bible in his best-selling pamphlet, Common Sense, to make the case for American freedom. And need I remind everyone of Thomas Jefferson, who, again, was not exactly an Orthodox Christian, who nonetheless included mention of God having endowed his creation with certain unalienable rights, and these being self-evident truths. Should the state be the sole arbiter of those truths, or truth, period, and thus dictate to the people what they should and should not believe? The first part of the First Amendment says emphatically no, and this is why that part of the Constitution is still relevant and important today. No, truth should be in your hands to explore, discover, cultivate, and help you appreciate the liberties that we do have, and give you reasons for defending these liberties with your life if necessary. And that's the first takeaway from Tiananmen Square in Hong Kong. While we have people here who are all too willing to surrender their freedoms to the government, over there they have people who have died trying to establish for themselves what we have, because they see the value of liberty, something that all too many of us have taken for granted. How Tiananmen Square turned out and how Hong Kong might wind up holds the second lesson that they offer us. While ideals are fine, living them out can be subjected to force, especially if a regime determines that foisting its policies with a strong arm is preferable to trying to persuade the people through more reasonable means. Happily, our founders understood this and encouraged us not only to defend our rights in the abstract, but physically too. The Second Amendment can't do it alone. The First Amendment can't do it by itself. These serve as the foundations for our defense, but don't forget the rest of them, because we need them all. Happy Bill of Rights Day.